I'm Zach. In case you're wondering what that noise is, I'm from Ireland. This is a Northern Irish accent. I studied mathematics at Queen's in Belfast. Ended up getting a job in a bank post-COVID. I quite quickly realised that it wasn't for me. I attended the virtual version of this summit 2 years ago, and that's ultimately what kind of pushed me to look for a job outside of what I deem to be the traditional kind of career avenues. Ended up moving and joining a crypto exchange, and it's been a fantastic experience, and I'll probably talk about it a little bit more, but that's kind of just the quick intro.
Yeah, hi, I'm Jag. Currently work for Master pretty much at ipushpull. I did physics at the University of Leicester. I graduated 2 years ago. Been there and done it with the banking side of stuff. With an internship at Barclays in 2021. Similar to sort of Zach, figured that it wasn't really for me. I'm working with ipushpull. I did a year or two as a data scientist with ML. But yeah, I'm sure we'll go into why we chose Fintech over banking.
So to introduce myself, my name is Max. So I recently graduated actually 2 years ago. So I did my undergraduate in finance, and then I joined Six straight out of uni. So I've been with Six now for 2 years. At Six, I've worked kind of in a couple of different areas. So when I first joined, I worked with our regulatory data team, so doing data analysis, kind of more operational stuff. Then quickly moved over to our funds data team, where we were launching some new products. So I had quite a lot of involvement in sort of defining where the data and the quality of the data and how our products look. And actually alongside that, Six very luckily have been supporting me to do a master's part-time, which is a big part of what I do. So I do also a master's in data science. So I also get to study whilst working, which is, as you can imagine, a lot of work, but it's also very rewarding.
So I got a question then around banking versus fintech, because I spoke to you before and you said that you applied for a bunch of banks and you ended up not working in a bank. You worked in a bank in internship and hated it, and you worked in a bank and you wanted to get into fintech and crypto.
Yeah.
So can you talk about that?
It very much depends on your mindset. I think within the first week of actually arriving at a bank, and I can't talk for other banks, but the one that I worked at, I just knew that I wasn't going to thrive there. And you hear people throw around the terms of like, when you work at a fintech or a startup, you're a lot more entrepreneurial. What that meant for me was I actually took more responsibility and cared more about what I did when I moved. And I think it speaks a lot to the culture at the bank that I was at. It just depends. Some people like the big corporate, some people enjoy it. You've heard from a lot of people that have kind of worked in various different sizes of companies. And something that stuck out for me from an earlier conversation was the size of the company actually matters incredibly. And you don't really realize that because, at least for me, when I was in university, I just got sucked along with the allure of corporate finance, and I just thought I need to get a job at a bank. But actually, you have to think about what kind of person am I, and like what does that mean in terms of the size of the company that I want to work for. That's probably the biggest thing that I've noticed in terms of the shift. If you're a smaller company, you tend to get more responsibility earlier on, but you also feel like you own what you do a lot better because there's just less stacks above you. And I think that's kind of been the biggest shift for me in terms of the difference in environment and why I ultimately much prefer the size of the company that I work in now. I think when people use the term fintech, we're a finance company, we're an exchange, we're a traditional finance company, but we're tech focused. We have majority of our employees are developers, and we have some of the best tech on the street. And I think that kind of fintech word is more just a description on the mindset of our company. And for me, that's kind of why I much prefer being in fintech now as opposed to what it was like in banking.
I think for me, so I didn't originally work in the bank, but I'm sure this probably resonates with a lot of you guys if you are just recently graduated or studying. I very much watched Wall Street at uni and decided I want to be an investment banker. So applied for all of the banks, did all the assessment centres, and also then started looking at other smaller tech firms and also Six. And I really quickly realised that going through the whole process and how they treated the kind of people interviewing, I just realised that working for a big bank just wasn't for me. So I actually then pivoted and I talked to a lot of recruiters at the time and started to look more in the tech side of the business, also because I wanted to learn those technical skills, which maybe wouldn't have got as much of an opportunity to do at more of a traditional financial firm. So I think it's really easy to look, especially if you're a finance undergrad or economics, is like, yeah, traditional finance, corporate finance, I want to be in that part of the industry. But I think if you broaden your scope and you can realize there's so much more to this industry, and also where the innovation and where the money is going is into the tech part of the industry as well. So I think there's a lot of room to grow, and I think it can be very valuable.
Echo the sentiments that you guys have said. Similar sort of mindset to me as well. I definitely think doing the internship or some sort of experience with a bank definitely helps. So I see a lot of Gen Z faces. So if you can get some experience in a bank, just to see whether it's for you or not, is definitely helpful. But for me personally, similar to these guys, it was just a bit too slow. There's a lot of red tape. You have to get approval from different levels. You don't learn quite as much at the pace or the amount that you would at maybe a smaller boutique tech firm. So yeah, and also sort of being part of working from tech from the start. Got to see both sides of it. So I saw the internship at Barclays, compared it with sort of the stuff that we were doing with working fintech. And very much liked the working fintech side of things. Me personally, sort of my background and my degree, very tech focused. So did a lot of Python at uni, a lot of data science and ML. And so going from, instead of doing IB tech, sort of pivoting over to doing pure data science and ML, sort of platform engineering space.
I think when we talked during the week, we all sort of very much agreed that the lessons that we've learned over the sort of past couple of years, and we're probably not that much older than you guys, if we had have known something like that stuff back then, it would have definitely changed the kind of route or how we went about trying to get to where we are. I wouldn't have spent hours and hours and hours sending out applications. I wouldn't have applied to 10 different firms, because when you're applying to 10 different firms, you don't know what you want to do. And I think that's so apparent. And not everyone fits the cookie cutter ATS CV that ends up getting an internship. And there are alternative ways to get jobs. And if you look outside of what kind of everyone's hurrying towards, you can see that there's a lot of different firms that still will give you a fantastic kind of career and a fantastic corporate experience. If we could kind of tell people something that we would have liked to know then, that we maybe didn't have the luxury of being told, it's just try not to do what everyone else is doing, because there's so many people going for such a small amount of internships at these big banks. And I know it's tough. You kind of got to get an internship at some place, but you have to think outside of the box. And it's very easy to say, think outside of the box, but what does that actually mean? Just find people and talk to them. I don't like the concept of applying to a job, because in my eyes, if you're applying, so many other people are also applying. You're already too late. If the job's posted, you're probably too late. That's maybe a not perfect, but try and find the job. And it already means that you're going to be competing against those people. And the chances are, if you find the job, you're going to want it more than if you just saw a role posted and decided to throw a CV on it.
I agree. And I think when I was applying for, in my final year of university, I remember I had an Excel sheet and there's like 130 different companies, the date I applied for them, what status they are, spent hours and hours on researching how to get past the video interviews. So you spend so much of your time and energy doing it. And then when I got round to it, and I had offers from some of the banks, and I then didn't go for it. Actually, where pushed me towards this part of the industry was I talked to a recruiter, and actually the recruiter specialised in hiring for financial services and tech roles. And then me talking about what I want for my career, very quickly him going, well, actually, you sound like you don't even really want to work for a bank. This definitely is more focused on where you want to go, which is then when he started to introduce me to and put me forward for these types of roles. And then eventually met with Six, and then I just found this was the company that I wanted to work for, and did the interviews and everything, went for it. And then I've not been back since I've been at Six. I've had such a fantastic experience. I guess the message from that would be is that, don't check really what you want to do before deciding that, this is the exact, corporate finance is the only route to go through it, because it really just isn't.
Yeah, I understand. So days like this, summits like this will definitely help, because you see sales, you see crypto, viewpoints from people like us. And the message kind of is, try and find a niche that you like. It might not be what you thought it was going to be at university. Definitely wasn't for me. Sales and trading, front office, was the idea, because, watch The Big Short, and, everyone knows about The Big Short. So, great movie. Similar, having spreadsheets with 60 to 100 companies and updating the status as you go along, and then as the story goes, most of them end up red. So instead of doing virtual, we were laughing about virtual assessment centers. It's just, it's just such a corporate thing, isn't it? So wasn't for me, wasn't for these guys really as well. If that's not for you, then look elsewhere. Network with people like days like this, like people walking around, speak to them, strike up a conversation, and like seek out the opportunities that we don't make for yourself.
Can you talk about continuous learning? Because all of you you went into one thing and then you've continuously learned about new areas, new opportunities, and there's not a straight path. You have to kind of make your own path.
Yeah. When I was leaving uni, the amount of roles that were kind of like on my radar, it was probably easily more than 100 different role titles, and I had no concept of what it was I wanted to do. I tried one thing, and it was in loan syndication, which meant a lot of legal documents. And as someone with a mathematics background, that wasn't really something that I ended up enjoying very much. When I moved and when I changed kind of industry, I guess, and into the exchange, I ended up joining on business development, institutional sales. And I ended up in that role because I approached them and just said, this is my skill set. This is what I'm interested in. This is what I'm good at. And I think that kind of the ability to talk came across. So they brought me on, but very quickly we realized that actually I wanted to go with something more numbers based. So within 3 months, I'd moved from business development into a more analytical role. And then from there, I kind of progressed into being a data scientist. And the luxury of having a mathematics background that was based a lot on statistics is the jump between those two isn't too big. But the beauty of a fintech or a beauty of a smaller firm is your ability to transition between teams is amplified because you're not boxed in where you only speak to certain people. I barely spoke to many other teams that I was at a bank. Not even enough to be able to identify other roles in that company that I'd want to work in. I mean, in the first 3 months, I knew exactly what team I wanted to go to. And through a very casual conversation, next thing I know, I'm kind of speaking to the manager of that team, and they're like, yeah, we would love to have you on board. And I think you get that beauty with smaller firms and fintech firms that are more agile, they move quicker, and they kind of don't have the years and years and years of structure that banks or the bigger corporates do.
No, I think my experience is also quite similar. So I joined in a more basic kind of operational data analyst role, and I very quickly started to pick it up, learn the business and understand more. And then was straight away given an opportunity to move into something where I can have more impact, I can learn new skills. And then even now, for the last 6 months, I've been looking at, okay, where can I progress and where can I grow in my career? And the people around me are just ultra supportive of that. It's going, okay, if you want to learn this type of skill, then reach out to this team, reach out to this people. And it's so different from what your experience was at a bank, going, you barely even spoke to different teams. Whereas these teams, everybody speaks to each other, everybody learns from each other. If you want to have opportunities to, speak to clients and learn how that part of the business works, you can earn and get that responsibility. If you want to become more of the tech side of it, you can get that responsibility by just speaking to people, learning from people, and really, I guess, just trying to network within your own company, which I have heard not just from you guys, but also from friends who've worked at banks. That's just not the kind of type of culture that's cultivated in those companies.
Yeah. Continuous learning is like really important. So if you're someone who likes to think fast, pick up concepts really quickly, doesn't like to get comfortable, as is the banking term, then definitely look at some books with it. Because being in a startup, you're going to find like-minded people who challenge you, want to push you in different areas. No two days are the same. And in banking, you have, tech hates product hates marketing. It's just a circle of people to talk to each other. So, if you want to, it honestly, it depends on mindset, collaboration. Do you want to put yourself out there and talk to people? Do you want to learn every day? Or do you want to be sort of comfortable and just accept a little bit?
There's actually a great point, is the opportunity to do things also is there, right? If you have those technical skills, so if you find a business problem, right, whereas I think traditionally if you have a business problem, it's solved by performing some manual work. But just for context, a year ago before I started Masters, I could not write a single line of Python. You could not ask me a single question about it, I have no idea, right? But the opportunities and the continuous learning that a company like this promotes is now I'm able to create tools that solve relatively complex business problems, build back end and front end, and make things far more efficient. And I just can't see that being the same culture or the same kind of, I guess, way of learning as you would in a non-technical focused firm.
Yeah, definitely. From the internship experience, so something goes wrong, you have to write something, you have to send it to your manager, who has to get line approval from their manager, and then tech decides to implement it like a month later. In a smaller tech firm, you'll say to someone, "Oh, this is a problem," and they'll say, "Okay, what have you done to sort of fix it first?" You're sort of, "Oh, I need to ask someone else," and they need to speak to someone else type thing. So it's just different because obviously a bigger firm, there's a lot more sort of red tape, but a smaller firm, it's more about pushing you to solve the problem, telling you to do something. And what have you done? So putting the ownership on you instead of putting barriers.
Yeah, and again, I've been able to pick up and learn stuff that I definitely wouldn't have been able to at a bank. And I know a lot of them sponsor kind of ongoing continuous learning, but my experience is that again it requires approvals and it takes a while. Whereas I wanted to write some code, I wanted to pick up Solidity because we're a crypto exchange. I wanted to look at what goes on underneath the hood. When I tried to do it online because of the kind of the corporate boundaries on my work laptop, it was pretty tricky, and I couldn't imagine trying to ask someone in a bank, can I have access to a machine where I can begin to write something? That just would have been a strict no. But, I spoke to someone and they said, you seem really interested, let's try and facilitate this for you. And they then found the right person that was able to set me up with a machine where I can kind of write code in an environment that is safe. And I just couldn't imagine having to go through that experience at somewhere where there's that amount of red tape. And for me, that ability to learn fast, it was something that was super crucial, and it should be super crucial at a young age. I'd say that's probably one of the biggest things about being able to learn fast.
So to wrap up, can you both give one piece of advice to you 5 years ago, which maybe a lot of these people aren't?
You're doing the right thing coming to events like this. If I hadn't went to the virtual one, I probably wouldn't have been motivated enough to go and show out and find a company that I wanted to work for. But I think that's the biggest one. Find the company that you want to work for and find the job. And don't be afraid to just message them. You hear people talk a lot about networking and nobody does it enough, and I don't even currently do it enough. But the more you network, the more opportunities you get. If you can speak to a person and learn a little bit about what they do, you're one step closer to finding the job that you want to do. But if all that you do is sit at home and send applications to jobs that you see posted, it's going to be a much harder experience, and it's not a nice feeling going through that process. Whereas when you're doing it almost more for yourself, where you're trying to find the job that you want and you're trying to be proactive and creative in getting that, I think it's just a much more rewarding experience, and it's something I would have loved to have been able to kind of go through more myself at an early stage as opposed to kind of post-graduation.
I think for me it will be question what it is exactly what you want and speak to people. So the more people you speak to, like you mentioned, the more roles that you discover. When I first started looking at these roles, I didn't know who Six were. I didn't know this type of role existed. If I had known that, a year before when I was in my last year of uni trying to, find a job, I would have been in a much better position. And I think also when it comes to like kind of continuous learning, just if you want to learn something, just do it. There's so many online courses. There's so many opportunities and avenues to learn things. You don't have to, wait for the right time to do it. If you want to learn how to code, just go online and find the hundreds of courses online and do it, and you'll thank yourself for it.
Otherwise, GPT.
Yeah.
I would say take risks and invest in yourself. So continuous learning. But if you see something that's interesting, it could be GPT, it could be ML. So figure out why it works. Like, why does it work? How can you improve it? Can you improve it? And sort of stuff like that. You're at the age where you can afford to take risks. But you have nothing to lose, pretty much. Like, that's what maybe 5 years ago, or whenever I was at uni, it was like, got to get, a job in banking. That's it. Like, you're not going to do anything else really. Like, and, you're running out of time, but it's the complete opposite. You have so much time. That's not to say, just sit around and do nothing, but, take risks. Branch out, look at different stuff, look at different roles. It probably won't be what you thought it was going to be. So, that's it.
Cool. Well, thanks, guys.